Let me tell you something that almost no one dares to say out loud. Most men are not weak for lack of strength, but for an excess of poorly managed emotion. You were trained from an early age to over-explain, over-feel, over-forgive, and overreact to everything. They said that was maturity. It wasn't. It was control. And Machiavelli already knew this centuries ago. While the modern world pushes you towards self-promotion, he taught the opposite. Those who govern themselves don't need to justify themselves. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Perhaps you've experienced this firsthand. You do everything right. You're understanding, present, available, and yet you're ignored, betrayed, or disrespected. It seems unfair, but it's not an accident. It's the norm. The world doesn't respond to naive kindness. It responds to clarity of position. It's better to be feared than loved when love comes without respect. The end justifies the means when the goal is to stop being manipulated. And today, in 15 minutes, you'll understand why silence, emotional control, and strategic posture are worth more than any pretty speech. This video isn't about becoming aggressive, cold, or empty. It's about killing the version of yourself that keeps you small, the reactive one, the one who talks too much, the one who hesitates, and allowing a man to be born who observes, calculates, and chooses. A man who understands virtù and fortuna, who uses force in a calculated way and builds his own loyal armies within his own mind. If you watch until the end, you won't come out motivated. You'll come out lucid, and lucidity changes everything. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. Within every man lives a weak boy, and no, he is not innocent. He is needy, reactive, shaped by the need to be accepted at any cost. This boy confuses empathy with submission, dialogue with confession, kindness with self-promotion. He talks too much when he should observe, forgives too quickly when he should record, feels too much when the moment calls for calculation. He is the one who believes that the world rewards good intentions when reality shows otherwise, politics guided by reality, not by ideals. This boy thinks that being loved solves everything, but forgets that, as Machiavelli warned, it is better to be feared than loved when one cannot be both. He acts without strategy, hoping that the other will recognize his purity, while the world responds to clarity, not fragility. And so, without realizing it, he surrenders emotional territory, not out of malice, but out of trained naivete. The problem is not feeling, it's exposing oneself without understanding the environment. The end justifies the means when the goal is to survive with dignity, and dignity demands a position. This boy seeks understanding, but the world doesn't function as a lap. He wants to be seen as good, displaying an appearance of virtue, while ignoring that virtue and fortune favor those who decide, not those who beg. He believes that insisting, explaining, and justifying will generate respect, when, in practice, it only increases predictability. One's own loyal armies are not built with requests, but with posture. Those who speak everything they feel become an open map. Those who feel and observe become an enigma. Decisions based on real human nature require recognizing that people test limits. and respect those who set them. The calculated use of force begins in inner silence, knowing when to retreat, when to advance, when not to react. Constant adaptability is not about changing values, but about adjusting their expression to the terrain. The boy reacts to alleviate the anxiety of the moment. The man chooses to master time. And time, as we know, has no mercy on those who hesitate. That's why disrespect repeats itself as a pattern, not as an accident. The boy interprets clear signs as convenient misunderstandings. He stays, even when everything points to a way out. He calls what has become dependence, hope. The mentor observes and says, "It's not the world that's betraying you. It's your version of yourself that insists on explaining itself." Killing the boy isn't killing tenderness. It's killing submission. It's ending the habit of offering oneself before being chosen. It's exchanging reaction for reading, emotion for strategy, impulse for position. When that key turns, something begins to die inside, and that's frightening. But every real transformation begins with a silent ultimatum. What's still unclear is what needs to be buried first. Do you want to adjust something on this topic, or should we continue as is? Every man, at some point in his life, must face the funeral of the persona he created to survive. It's not a dramatic event with applause or witnesses. It's silent, internal, and uncomfortable. The good boy believed that being understanding was synonymous with being weak, that always yielding would avoid conflict, and that over-explaining would generate empathy. But time doesn't negotiate with illusions. It rewards those who decide. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, exacts a high price from those who insist on living as if the world were just by default. Machiavelli already made it clear that the appearance of virtue, when unaccompanied by structure, becomes an invitation to exploitation. This funeral isn't about blaming the past, but about recognizing that certain versions of yourself served their purpose, and now they're a hindrance. The end justifies the means when the goal is to stop being small, and growing up almost always hurts. My old self confused tolerance with passivity. I thought that giving another chance was maturity, when often it was fear of losing approval. The mentor observes and points out, decisions based on real human nature require accepting that not everyone plays fair, and that this is not personal, it's structural. Virtù and fortuna favor those who take a stand early, not those who wait eternally for signs. The man who is born understands that his own loyal armies begin within the mind. Clear values, visible limits, predictable consequences. Killing the child is not about erasing emotions. It's about ceasing to be governed by them. It's about replacing impulse with the calculated use of force. Sometimes force is leaving, sometimes it's staying silent, sometimes it's saying no without justification. Constant adaptability is abandoning characters that no longer work in the current game. The hard truth is simple. To be reborn, something must die. And what dies here is not sensitivity, but submission, disguised as kindness. The ritual doesn't require an audience, only honesty. Some write it for themselves, others verbalize it to solidify the commitment. Saying, "The boy dies here," isn't theater, it's a mental anchor. It's marking the moment you stop negotiating with your own weakness. The world respects those who respect themselves first, and that begins with irreversible decisions. The silence that follows this funeral isn't emptiness, it's space. Space to see patterns, review choices, and perceive scars that haven't yet been read. Because when the old self falls, something begins to whisper beneath the pain. Do you want to change something in this topic, or should we move on to the next one? Every scar carries a warning that was ignored when it mattered most. The mentor often says that no pain arrives without announcing its arrival. It whispers before it screams. You saw the disrespect, felt the unease in your stomach, noticed the change in tone. but you chose to believe the best. Not out of pure naivete, but because the inner child still sought approval. He called what was already fear of losing ground empathy. But decisions based on real human nature require accepting an uncomfortable fact. The world respects the lucid, not the innocent. Machiavelli understood this with surgical precision. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, does not reward those who ignore signs, but those who interpret them in time. Every time you remained silent when you should have left, you marked your body with an invisible scar, and the body remembers even when the mind tries to justify it. Unbridled forgiveness becomes submission disguised as virtue. This is a harsh truth, but liberating. The appearance of virtue, when repeated indiscriminately, destroys a man's silent authority. Virtue and fortune walk with those who know when to end cycles, not with those who insist on saving them. The mentor observes that many people didn't lose because they were betrayed. They lost because they stayed. They stayed explaining, they stayed waiting, they stayed betting that the other would change. The end justifies the means when the objective is to preserve one's own dignity. Loyal armies are not formed on unstable ground, and whoever hesitates before the obvious teaches the world to test them again. Hesitation is the poison of the strong. It paralyzes those with potential, while giving an advantage to those who act unscrupulously. These scars don't demand revenge, they demand interpretation. They are maps, not sentences. The man who begins to mature doesn't revolt, he records. He stops narrating his own pain and begins to analyze it. Calculated use of force here means learning to leave before the wound deepens. Sometimes the most powerful action is silent withdrawal. Constant adaptability is understanding that it's not about hardening the heart, but about educating it. The silence that arises from these scars is not repression, it's discernment. And the more you read your own emotional history, the more you realize that some versions of yourself still try to justify what has already been understood. That's where the inevitable question arises: how many of these versions still need to be buried? Do you want to adjust something on this topic, or should we move on to the next one? The inner child doesn't die easily. Even after so many scars, it still tries to justify those who hurt you, to find elegant explanations for choices that have already cost dearly. It calls what was a decision context, what was standard chance. The mentor observes that maturity demands a necessary dose of cruelty, accepting that they weren't accidents, they were choices, yours and others. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, begins when you stop romanticizing the past. Being too good at this point becomes self-sabotage. The appearance of virtue keeps the ego clean, but leaves the territory vulnerable. Machiavelli didn't defend wickedness, but lucidity. Virtù and fortuna favor those who learn quickly, not those who insist on explaining themselves to their own conscience. The graveyard of old versions is not a place of guilt. It's a place of closure. Each version of yourself that died tried, in its own way, to protect you. Some by pleasing you, others by yielding, others by remaining too silent. Honoring these versions is not about resurrecting them, but about burying them with dignity. Your own loyal armies don't march backward. Decisions based on true human nature require accepting that being good is not an absolute value. It's a strategic resource that needs limits. The calculated use of force here means saying, I will never again let my heart dictate what my mind has already understood. This is not coldness, it's alignment. Constant adaptability means abandoning narratives that no longer work in the current game. The true funeral happens in silence, not in tears. There are no speeches, only a cold decision to move on. Closing the coffin and leaving without looking back is an act of inner sovereignty. Those who dwell too much on the past are negotiating with ghosts. The mentor often reminds us The world respects those who don't explain themselves to the emotionally dead. The end justifies the means when the means are one's own integrity. Each step taken away from these old versions creates space for something new to emerge. And this something doesn't arrive making noise, it settles in calmly. A different kind of presence begins to emerge, a posture that doesn't need to prove anything. That's when silence ceases to be a defense and begins to become power. Do you want to adjust something on this topic, or should we move on to the next one? After the funeral ends, something changes almost imperceptibly. The newly born man no longer feels that childish urge to answer everything, explain everything, justify everything. He understands in practice what Machiavelli meant when he warned that those who try to profess goodness in all their actions end up ruining themselves. Not because goodness is a mistake, but because goodness without strategy becomes predictable weakness. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that every word is a movement, and every movement reveals a position. Silence, then, ceases to be empty and becomes the domain of territory. Those who talk too much give themselves away. Those who are consciously silent observe. The appearance of virtue no longer needs to be announced. It manifests itself in posture. Virtue and fortuna begin to conspire in favor of those who know how to wait. This man understands that sincerity without understanding the environment is social suicide. He has seen people lose respect for being too transparent and has witnessed promises used as ammunition against those who made them. Decisions based on real human nature start from the principle that people test limits, always. And silence is an invisible, yet powerful, limit. Your own loyal armies form when you don't react to any external stimulus. The calculated use of force here is not raising your voice, but choosing when to speak. Sometimes the most strategic response is a neutral look, a deliberate delay, a calmly said, "I'll think about it." And constant adaptability means understanding that not every provocation deserves a response. Those who confuse coldness with arrogance have not yet learned the difference between control and contempt. Over time, people begin to feel something different. They can't explain it, but they realize that this man is no longer available for emotional games. He doesn't rush, he doesn't defend himself, he doesn't sell himself cheaply. His silence weighs more than other people's speeches. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve one's own emotional sovereignty. It's not about becoming inaccessible, but about becoming selective. And this selectivity changes the game. What was once noise now becomes information. What once provoked a reaction now finds space. It is at this point that the man begins to realize that mastering silence is only the first step. He still needs to learn to master what happens inside him when no one is watching. Do you want to adjust something in this topic, or should we move on to the next one? Mastering emotions isn't about erasing them. It's about placing them in their proper place, in the internal hierarchy. The mentor often says that detachment isn't the absence of feeling, it's the presence of awareness. The mature man realizes that the world easily manipulates those who love too much, hate too much, talk too much, feel too much. Excess emotion becomes a lever in the wrong hand. Machiavelli understood this when he spoke of decisions based on real human nature. People react to predictable stimuli. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that those who expose themselves emotionally without discernment lose their power to maneuver. Inner silence begins when you observe what you feel before acting. Virtù and fortuna favor those who can pause between impulse and action. It's not repression, it's inner governance. The end justifies the means when the means is not being a slave to one's own temperament. Historical examples make this crystal clear. Samurai practiced jisei-nuku, writing death poems before battle to bid farewell to their passions. It wasn't morbidity, it was strategy. Those who have already said goodbye to attachment don't hesitate. Spartans in the Agog learned early on that crying doesn't change destiny, it only delays it. They transformed emotion into steel. Self-made and loyal armies begin with emotional control, not physical strength. The calculated use of force is born when you don't react in the heat of the moment. Constant adaptability is adjusting the emotional response to the scenario, not to the ego. The man who understands this stops dramatizing conflicts and begins to see them as given. Mystery here becomes a silent advantage. Those who don't fully commit preserve room for maneuver. The man who feels too much hesitates. The one who observes his own feelings governs. He doesn't deny anger, but uses it. He doesn't run from fear, but interprets it. He doesn't fall in love with his own narrative. The appearance of virtue ceases to be emotional and becomes structural. Little by little, the world realizes that there isn't someone reactive there, but someone illegible. And when you become difficult to read, the game changes. Because those who don't freely give away emotion begin to see something that previously went unnoticed, the game itself. Do you want to adjust something in this topic, or should we move on to the next one? After silence settles and emotions are brought into order, something curious happens. Instead of anger, clarity is born. The boy reacted impulsively, confusing intensity with courage and urgency with truth. The man now acts by calculation, not out of gratuitous coldness, but through a precise reading of the situation. Machiavelli always implied that power is not brute force, but an understanding of the terrain. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, is knowing that not every battle is worth fighting. Decisions based on real human nature start from the principle that people reveal themselves in their patterns, not in their speeches. The end justifies the means when the means is choosing the right move, and often the right move is not to move. Virtù and fortuna favor those who observe more than react. At this point, man begins to move as if playing chess with destiny. He understands timing, position, and consequence. His own loyal armies do not advance without logistics. Similarly, personal decisions are not made in the heat of the moment. The calculated use of force appears in simple details, responding later, not immediately, listening more than speaking, leaving before being expelled. Haste is the weapon of the insecure. Silence is the shield of those who have direction. Constant adaptability means perceiving when the scenario has changed and adjusting the strategy without clinging to the old plan. The concept of Wu Wei, acting effortlessly, manifests itself when you let the other get lost in their own noise while you conserve energy. The true winner doesn't destroy the other, they build themselves. This is a powerful internal shift. Instead of spending time proving something, they invest in structure, routine, reading, positioning. Books like The Prince cease to be theory and become a lens. The man learns that control isn't imposed, it emanates. The appearance of virtue is now a consequence, not a performance. The game changes when you understand that you don't need to win every round to win the match, and when this understanding settles in, something bigger begins to take shape. A perception of a world where everyone talks too much and few see the value of silence. Do you want to adjust something in this topic, or should we move on to the next one? We live in an age of constant noise. Everyone opines, reacts, takes a stand, explains, justifies. Silence has become suspect, almost a character flaw. The mentor observes that modern society has transformed noise into virtue and confused exposure with courage. But politics, guided by reality, not by ideals, shows something else. The more people speak, the fewer people listen. The more one gives, the less value one preserves. Machiavelli already understood that the appearance of virtue displayed in excess loses its effect. The world does not respect those who shout principles, but those who uphold them without fanfare. Virtù and fortuna favor those who move outside the spotlight, adjusting their course while others compete for attention. Silence here is not absence, it is a filter, and whoever filters chooses. In this noisy environment, the man who masters his own silence begins to seem out of place. While everyone reacts in real time, he delays his response. While everyone explains themselves, he observes. Decisions based on real human nature show that most people confuse presence with importance. Loyal armies are not built in public squares, but behind the scenes. The calculated use of force is knowing when to appear and when to disappear. Constant adaptability is understanding that visibility is not power, it is a tool, and a tool misused becomes a weapon against its wielder. The end justifies the means when the means is to protect one's own sovereignty in an environment that rewards impulsiveness. Ultimately, the contrast becomes clear. The boy sought love, the man seeks purpose. The boy chased approval. The man understood that respect is earned through posture. Noise serves the anxious, silence strengthens the strategists. When they call you cold or distant, the mentor suggests only a restrained smile. They are not seeing someone without emotion. They are seeing someone who has learned to govern their own chaos. And when this understanding takes hold, the desire arises to apply all of this to the real world, beyond discourse, in everyday life. If you wish, we can adjust something here before moving on to the next steps of the script. Now, the inevitable question is simple and uncomfortable. What are you going to do with all this? Because knowledge that doesn't translate into action is just intellectual entertainment. You've just understood that strength lies not in reacting, but in choosing. That silence is not weakness, it's territory. That uncontrolled emotion becomes a weapon against you. So from today onward, where are you still talking too much? Where are you still staying when you should have already left? Where are you still confusing kindness with fear of losing approval? Decisions based on real human nature require concrete action, not internal promises. Observe your next few days with brutal honesty. Try remaining silent where you would previously have explained yourself. Try leaving without giving a speech. Try not reacting immediately to provocations. This is the calculated use of force. This is constant adaptability. Notice how the world responds differently when you change your posture, not because you've become tough, but because you've ceased to be predictable. Virtù and fortuna favor those who position themselves clearly. And yes, some people will be bothered. This is a sign that the game has changed. Remember, it's better to be feared than loved when love demands self-annihilation. And avoiding being hated doesn't mean exposing yourself. It means acting intelligently. Now I want to know from you, which version of yourself needs to die today so that the strategic man can continue to live tomorrow? In what situation will you apply silence as power this week? Write it in the comments, because when you verbalize it, you seal a commitment. And if this kind of clarity has made you see things that no one has ever explained to you this way, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we don't train men to please the world. We train men to govern themselves.